Your favorite AI model just became a geopolitical asset. And most product teams have absolutely no plan for what happens when a government agency shuts it down. Last week, Anthropic released what might be the most capable AI model available right now. Within weeks of launch, it got jailbroken. The US government issued a shutdown directive on Friday afternoon at 5:21 p.m. No advance notice, no specific explanation, all customers disabled worldwide. The jailbreak was apparently reported to the government by Amazon, the same Amazon that is both an investor in Anthropic and their primary infrastructure provider. That is the world you're building products in today. At JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, we had rigorous vendor risk frameworks, financial stability checks, contractual protection, regulatory compliance reviews, disaster recovery testing, business continuity plan. You know that list. None of the framework captures what just happened to Anthropic's customers. The category of risk that the standard vendor management playbook has was never designed to handle this kind of a shutdown. A government agency issued a directive that disabled the product for all customers globally, not because of a technical failure, not because the vendor went bankrupt, because of a national security decision made in Washington that customers had zero visibility into and zero ability to influence. If Fable 5 was embedded in your customer-facing product or your internal workflow, last Friday, your product broke and your disaster recovery plan almost certainly did not have a scenario for this is the new dimension of platform risk you need to be building for. And you need to understand what is actually happening inside the AI industry right now. About 2 months ago, Anthropic did something unusual. They announced a model called Mythos Preview and told the world it was too dangerous to release publicly. The specific concern was advanced cybersecurity capabilities. The model itself was apparently so good at identifying and exploiting security vulnerabilities. A lot of people roll their eyes at that. The cynical read is obvious. When a company tells you their own product is too powerful to release, it sounds like marketing. It sounds like hype. Then 2 months later, Anthropic releases Fable, a version of Mythos with safety guardrails. Ben Thompson at Strategy, who's not someone who hands out compliments easily, wrote that Fable made GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8 feel, and I'm quoting him directly, small and dumb. The only other time he felt that kind of generational leap were with GPT-4 and Grok 4. His read is that Fable is downstream of a completely new pre-training run, a genuine step change in capability. So Fable launches. It is impressive. And then someone jailbreaks it almost immediately. The government moved fast. They issued an export control directive telling Anthropic to suspend all access for any foreign national, whether inside or outside the United States, including Anthropic's own foreign national employees. Anthropic had to disable access for all customers to ensure compliance. They got the directive at 5:21 p.m. on a weekday. No explanation, just a directive. Anthropic pushed back publicly. Their position was that the jailbreak was narrow, not universal, and that the specific vulnerabilities it surfaced were minor and already known. They pointed out that other publicly available models could find those same vulnerabilities without any bypass at all. And then the Amazon detail surfaces. The jailbreak happens to have been reported by Amazon, an investor and infrastructure provider, reporting their own portfolio company to federal regulators. And as I'm recording this, senior Anthropic staff are in Washington trying to resolve what they call a misunderstanding. White House officials are suggesting the company's leadership is being dangerously cavalier about legitimate national security concerns. This is the surface story. Now, let me tell you why none of this should surprise anyone. People arguing that Mythos is not powerful enough to justify the government's response are missing the point entirely. If it is not powerful enough now, the next model will be, or the one after that. But there is a second pressure driving this conflict, and it is economic. Understanding it's critical for any product person thinking about how to build on top of AI. Frontier AI labs have collectively lost tens of billions of dollars building leading-edge models. And once those models are released, they get distilled and commoditized by open source projects, many coming out of China. Free alternatives become good enough for most use cases. In a world where models are interchangeable, models are commodities, and commodities do not make anyone rich. So where does the value flow? It flows to whoever owns the user touchpoint. This has always been the most valuable position in any technology value chain, in any product value chain. You own the relationship with the user, you own the compounding revenue. Right now, frontier labs are commodity inputs into software products. Software companies own the user touchpoint, but the frontier labs have every economic incentive to move up the stack, which means replacing software rather than just empowering it. This puts them on a direct collision course with every software company that is currently building on top of their models. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, sees this collision coming. He laid out his response in a recent essay, and I want to spend a moment on his framing because it's one of the clearest articulations of how companies should be thinking about their AI strategy right now. Nadella's argument is that every company needs to build two kinds of capital simultaneously. Human capital, meaning the knowledge, judgment, relationships, and pattern recognition of your people. And token capital, meaning AI capability a firm builds and owns over time. His key point is that these compound together. You build a learning loop where humans direct AI. AI produces outputs, and the organization captures that learning back into its own systems. Over time, the loop becomes a genuine competitive asset. And the critical test of whether you've actually built something that belongs to you is this. Can you swap out the underlying foundational model without losing the expertise your system has built? If yes, you've built something durable. If no, you are one vendor dependency away from losing everything you've built. That test matters a lot more than it did 2 weeks ago because of what happened with Fable 5 is exactly what Nadella's sovereignty test was designed to protect against. If Mythos is so dangerous that Anthropic announced it was too dangerous to release, why release Fable at all? And why fight it with the government doing exactly what you claim to want? The cynical answer is revenue. Anthropic needs money to keep training models. Training models is how they pursue their safety mission. So they release, generate revenue, and tell themselves the commercial and safety imperatives are aligned. But I think there's something more happening here. Anthropic's safety work is not just a PR strategy. Their research on alignment and interpretability is taken seriously by governments, serious academics, and the part of the AI community thinking more carefully about long-term risks. That credibility is real, and it's an asset. The more seriously Anthropic is taken as a safety institution, the more access they will have to policymakers. The more access they have to policymakers, the more influence they will have over how regulations get written. The more influence over regulation, the better position they are to operate at that frontier while competitors face tighter constraints. Every time a model gets jailbroken, weeks after launch, the credibility takes a hit. Every time they fight publicly with the government over a national security directive, the narrative that they're actually not serious about safety gets more traction. The safety superpower works as long as the gap between what Anthropic says and what Anthropic does stays narrow. Right now, that gap is widening. And the institution watching that gap more carefully are exactly the regulators and policymakers whose trust Anthropic depends most on. For product teams building on a vendor whose regulatory credibility is under pressure is a vendor whose access, availability, and operating conditions are increasingly uncertain. There are 3 questions every product leader should be able to answer right now. Question 1. What is your model substitution plan? If the model your product depends on becomes unavailable overnight, what do you fall back to? Have you actually tested that fallback? Does it produce outputs close enough to your current model that your product still functions? Or is it the theoretical option that exists in a document somewhere and has never been validated under real conditions? The Fable 5 shutdown happened on a Friday evening. If you needed to swap models by Monday morning, what would actually happen? Question 2. Where does your product core value live? If your product's core value lives entirely inside a foundation model's capability and you do not have a product, you have a wrapper. And wrappers can be disrupted by policy decisions you had nothing to do with and no ability to anticipate. The teams that will hold their ground in this environment are the ones building proprietary data layers, domain-specific evaluation frameworks, and fine-tuning them. So regardless of what model that runs underneath, it always works. If you swap out the model without losing what makes your product valuable, you have built something real. If you cannot, you have a dependency problem. And then finally, question 3, are you tracking regulatory and policy signals as seriously as you track model performance? Most product teams are watching the benchmark scores and API pricing. Very few are watching export control trends, congressional hearing on AI, or geopolitical signals around model access. These signals are now directly relevant to product reliability. In financial services especially, where I spent 20 years across JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, model availability risk is now as real as infrastructure availability risk. Your risk framework needs to reflect that. If you're using AI in a customer-facing context and your model access disappears on a Friday night, that is a business continuity event. Treat it like one. We are moving into an era where the most powerful AI models will be treated more like strategic national assets than software products. Export controls, national security directives, government mandated access restrictions. All of that is going to become more common, not less. The geopolitical pressure on frontier AI is accelerating, not stabilizing. The product teams that will navigate this well are not necessarily the ones using the best models. They are the ones with deep enough domain expertise that they can operate effectively across whatever the model landscape looks like. The durable competitive advantage is in the AI area is not knowing which model to run. It is knowing your domain well enough and that you can direct any capable model to produce outputs your competitors cannot replicate. How do you build AI systems that are powerful enough to be useful and safe enough to be trusted? If you want a practical framework for evaluating AI vendor risk, building model substitution plans, and thinking through governance before your product gets caught in the next one of these situations, click the link in the description below. We are working with a lot of clients on these issues, creating governance frameworks, creating ethical ways of using AI, and how you can start thinking about effectively replace models and still get the quality that you're looking for. And if you're already reading the Satellite Strategy newsletter, I cover topics exactly like this one every week. Link is also in the description. I really hope you like this video. Like it, and please subscribe to my channel so that it supports my future videos. And looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye.